Hey guys, welcome back. This is Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown. I'm here with my normal co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo, and today we're going to talk about a really cool startup, a really cool concept and subject. And there's always a question in the marketplace of startup versus acquisition, and then we want to talk today about a quick startup. So the reality is, as you're growing, time has a significant value, and too long can be expensive, where you don't see it on a balance sheet, but it is expensive. And where it's expensive isn't the money you're spending at the time. Where it's expensive is the lost opportunity of the practice actually operating. So one thing for Dr. Vallo to have the accelerated growth he's had over the last couple of years, and trying to hit 7 practices possibly by the end of this year, is he really makes sure the time is used properly and the time happens the way it needs to for his timeline. So we're going to dig into today about how he does a quick startup so quick. And I've done tons of startups. My company's worked with Ideal Practices for years at startup consulting firm, and I've seen startups take a year to open. I've seen them take a few months to open, and I'll tell you that startups open in a few months, they just seem to do better. The docs that are on them are excited. They want to get work done. So, Doc Fallow, when it comes to quick startups, tell us kind of the fundamentals of what you believe needs to happen and why it needs to be quick.
Matt, I love how you opened that. You had me nodding my head so hard because I think that is a concept that many people and many dentists miss is the value of time. And that's something that I did not fully understand until more recently. But if you think about it, the typical startup timeline is 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, that's
So
normal.
that's over a year of your life, that you're waiting for things to get open, get off the ground.
It's a year less revenue.
It is. And even though my startups tend to get off to very quick starts and become profitable very quickly, every single one, over $1 million in the first year, it still was a lot of time that we've wasted. And three of my four offices so far, my four startups, three of them were in that normal time frame of 12 to 18 months. One of those four startups was a quick startup, or what I call a quick startup. And that one only took about 3 months from the time we found the space until we were actually open and seeing patients. So, I have really shifted my focus. I had, there was a period of time where I thought I was going to stop doing startups after these four. I thought I was going to do acquisitions. And as much as I would like to do acquisitions, I realized it's very challenging to find acquisitions where the office is big enough. Those are very desirable ones. They often get scooped up by the larger DSOs before they even hit the market. So, I kind of shifted my focus again, and I said, you know what? Let's kind of get the benefit of both worlds. I've proven that I can do these startups, I can grow them quickly, but I don't want to wait 12 to 18 months, to kind of do that full build out construction. So let's start looking for these quick startups. And essentially what they are old dental offices. They could be ones that, had been around for 50 years and the practice just kind of died out. The dentist retired, didn't wasn't able to sell it or whatever. They could be ones where someone tried to do a startup and, it didn't work out. And now it's just kind of a build out space that's available.
Call it a shell. It's a shell of a practice
It's a
with no
build out
patients.
shell. Yep.
Yeah.
Turnkey startup, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes they have equipment, sometimes they don't. Um, Personally, I typically prefer the ones that don't have equipment because a lot of times you don't even have to pay for that space. It's kind of built out, set up for you. All you've got to do is buy the equipment, install it. Maybe you do some cosmetic upgrades, and you can open. The reason I like that, I kind of like having some consistency with my equipment. There's also the tax benefit. So we did the episode recently about how to pay zero taxes legally. And my biggest strategy that has really helped me out and saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in taxes is opening these startup practices because you can write off almost 100% of that cost, including that equipment. So if you buy a shell where the equipment's already there, you're still writing off the vast majority of it. Especially if it's not coming with patients. The goodwill of the patients is usually the part that you don't get to write off the same way. So, anyways, I thought this was a very pertinent episode today because I'm currently in the process of working on three of these projects. The hope is all three are going to go through before the end of 2024. Two of them would be for new dental boutique general offices, and one would be for a new implant office. Two of the three are abandoned spaces that have no equipment. One of the three is kind of more turnkey, where it does come with equipment already there. So, like, what does this process look like? I guess, first of all, how do you find these spaces? There's kind of two methods that I've used to find these locations. One is through a commercial real estate broker. So I've made a good relationship with my local car real estate broker. He has actually worked with me on every single office that I've done. And so, I'm kind of at the top of his phone list whenever one of these spaces becomes available. And basically, he works with the landlord's broker who's trying to find a new tenant to come in there and sign a new lease. And they say, hey, we've got this abandoned dental space. We're looking for a new dentist to come in here and sign a lease. And again, most of the time in those cases, there's nobody that you're paying anything to. And actually, most of the time, you're getting some kind of tenant improvement allowance if you want to do some cosmetic construction, or you're getting some kind of free rent there too. So it can be a really nice way to save. Build outs cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If the space is already built out and usable how it is, and you don't have to do any construction, I mean, you literally are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on that startup.
So a lot of times when docs do startups, they're like, there's a lot of emphasis on where the real estate is. What is the location, right? I believe if you can get one of these shell practices, the savings of what you save in the build out is way more valuable than getting very location focused.
I literally text or messaged a dentist last night, who had sent me this long text about how he found this, what he thought
Location and
was a great,
demographics, I'm sure.
great opportunity, but there's no real visibility, and he just doesn't know if
Visibility
it's a
doesn't
great
matter.
idea. And literally, like, the quickest response ever, like, dude, visibility is so overrated. It sounds like a great opportunity. If you want to do it, you should just do it. Like,
Yeah.
guys, stop getting so hung up on the visibility. Stop getting so hung up on the exact location. It really doesn't matter in dentistry.
So
It is much more, if you're trying to open a fast food restaurant, it is much more important, because people walk by, drive by, whatever it is, they see the restaurant, they're
people don't pull
hungry,
into a
they
dentist when they're driving
stop
by it.
in,
They don't do
they
it.
buy some tacos, they buy some French fries, whatever it is. If it's a bar, yes, super important. People aren't like driving by, oh, you know what? I really wanted Invisalign. Let me pop in this office. Or, oh, you know what?
Doesn't never happens.
My teeth are feeling gritty. Let me pop in this office. So again, yes, will you get some walk-in drive-by patients? Yes, you will. But
Minimal.
like, the to pay a premium, or to wait for a space, or to pass up on an opportunity that's not, in one of these visible locations, is a terrible idea. You can get way more patients with great marketing, online marketing, social media marketing, than you're ever going to get from that visibility traffic. Just
Yeah.
trust me on this one, guys. I've,
So
again, 4 startups opened, 3 more in the works. I pay zero focus to the visibility. So it really doesn't matter.
to back that up, we have a relationship with DI. We share a lot of data, and we're a data driven company, and we collect a ton of data across our practices. And I'll tell you, like, let's say like Harris Teeter is a big food chain up here for grocery stores where I live. And let's say you found a spot that's next to a Harris Teeter in a really nice shopping center, and your rent is like 15,000 a month. But it's like, man, this is it though. But if you found something else in the same zip code that was in a medical office building, and the rent was 6,000 a month, or 7,000 a month, or 8,000 a month, and you spent the difference on marketing, and you got the place really cheap, like we're talking about, you're so far ahead, and you don't have as much financial pressure every month pushing you to make bad decisions. Because what happens is, I see docs get these big, beautiful commercial spaces. They do these awesome build outs, and their bare ass minimum is up here. And they have this pressure pushing them. And what happens is you start to develop a gambler's mindset, and you start making some really stupid decisions. Now, when you buy that medical office space or you lease it, that's in the scenario you're talking about that maybe doesn't have the visibility, but the rent is a third or half of what it is there, and you don't have the loan for building it out. Now you have the freedom to make decisions and use your money more efficiently. And I think that freedom and peace of mind and the view of how you're doing it is way more valuable than the visibility of being next to the big grocery store chain in your area and doing this giant high-end build out. Like the savings and the psychology of, hey, I don't have to spend as much. I can invest over here and try things, and I can really work on my business because I have resources I can spend. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. And guys, I'm not saying that you can't be successful in a higher rent visible area. One of my current projects would be my most visible office, kind of right on a main road, standalone building. It is incidentally also would be my highest, rent per square footage and all that stuff. But again, the the reason why to me it is still a great opportunity is because it's already built out. I am going to do some construction. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but it's already built out. And again, it's the time savings. It's the fact that I just found this place, and over the next 3 months, we can do that construction, get the equipment in there, and get this thing open, to patients. So, like again, I think the value of saving a year to get a new practice open to me is like that number one thing, right? Like that is like the most important thing for me. Would I have preferred this same building be in a similar area, but maybe like back from the main road or on the side road, and the rent be half of what it was? I would. I honestly would. But again, these opportunities only come by, so often, and it's like when they do, you kind of have to jump on them. So, anyways, I wanted to kind of share a little bit of information about each of these opportunities with you guys, so you can kind of get a feel for what I'm doing and what you could potentially be looking for. The first location, again, an old dental office. Dentist moved to another building. They kind of outgrew it. They had been there for 25 years or whatever, so it's a little bit older, a little bit dated. Actually, maybe even more. I think it was built in 1991 as a dental office, so maybe even a little bit older than that.
32 years old.
Yep, building's generally in good shape. Exterior, we're going to do some painting, just kind of freshen it up. We're going to replace an awning. We're going to do some landscaping, but nothing major. We're not really changing the facade of the outside or anything like that. In interior, actually, the floors look relatively new, so we're going to leave the floors in place. We're going to do some minor construction around the front desk, patient lounge area. It was previously built out for 8 operatories, but there's a good bit of wasted space in the office, so we're actually going to do construction in 2 phases. This year, just over the next couple months, we're going to do just like some cosmetic construction to make it look nicer for patients. And then next year, we're going to do an actual like functional construction, and we're going to go from 8 ops to 10 ops. So we've already got it all planned out. And so, like, how do you do this, guys? Like, how do you figure out like what you want to do with the construction and all that? You've got to have a great team. And I think it's really important when you find these opportunities, you want to go in there with all the different team members at one time. Like it's
Yeah.
literally like a think tank, a brainstorming session. And so like my executive assistant knows whenever he's scheduling, so first we find the opportunity. I'll usually go look at it myself with the broker or whatever. If I think it's a good opportunity, we start talking about lease terms and things like that. As we're making some progress on the lease and it looks like things are going to move forward, that's when I then schedule, we'll schedule everyone together to meet at the same time. That includes, the general contractor who's going to be doing any of that construction for you. That includes your equipment reps. So, I've got my Banco guy that I've been using for all of my startups for the last 3 or 4 years here now. That we even got the DCI chair guy out there so that he can talk to us about, some of the specifics with how we're trying to rearrange some rooms and the chairs and delivery units and all that good stuff. Ideally, if you have a custom cabinet guy, get them out there. My guy's in Jacksonville, so it's a pretty long drive, but we sent him all the information, told him what we're looking at, him doing. Your IT company. So I had, one of the guys from my IT company was out there. So like my operations manager, my executive assistant, my commercial real estate broker, like all of us out walking through this space together, me talking about what I want to accomplish, and everyone kind of giving input and bringing up possible problems, and us thinking about solutions to those problems. That's huge. That's how you make sure that you don't run into major issues once you start the project. So like that's kind of my recipe for success when you're doing. I mean, that's important for a true startup as well, but if it's a quick start where you've got a space that's already built out where you want to make some changes to, really helpful to have all these people out there. If you use a sign company, we FaceTimed the owner of my sign company who's done all my signage for all my offices. Again, the timing didn't work for her, but while we were there, we just kind of FaceTime her. We took some basic measurements for her and things like that, so she can start working on designs for the different signage we want, both interior and exterior for the building.
So I think part of it too, in the mindset Doc has to have when they're looking at this is kind of think about the money you're going to invest in building out this practice. It's kind of like an investment, like you put in an investment vehicle, right? If you do a regular startup, this money's sitting frozen, not working for you. And with inflation attacking it and everything, a year startup, the build out could go up just based on inflation, and you're not getting as much for your money, right? Like that's a real thing. We watched it happen over the last couple of years. A lot of startups, they got to the end and they were 20%, 30% overbuild. And if you do it quick, you can hedge against that inflation problem and the cost of it, because it's happening rapidly right now. It just is, right? Like you don't ever want your money sitting in a low yield bank. If you have a few $100,000 right now, you don't want it sitting in a low yield bank account. You want it working to at least hedge against inflation because it's just being devalued. Well, the same thing with this. Like you want to get to market as fast as possible to have that investment working for you. And I really believe so. When we look at practices, me and Ryan, our priority is we call them shell practices. Shell practice is number one. Startup is number two. Acquisition is a very distant third when we're looking at practices. I like the first two because, like you said, your money gets working for you real rapidly. So once you have your team in there and you start the build, right? How involved are you on the way to it getting open? Like you as the CEO of the whole group? Like if you took your time, so you're gonna do three of these practices, right? Do you take your time and is it 80% on the three practices opening and 20% on the existing practices? Like how do you start managing your time as you're adding this practice? How do you like say this is the priority for the majority of my time right now and I trust my team over here and pull back here? Like tell me how you do that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. It is true, guys, that like whenever I do a new startup, like I spend the most time working on that practice before it opens. So like once it opens
Okay.
its doors, yes, I am somewhat involved in the like initial training with the team members. Like I'll be there, at least for a day with the new team members there. Yes, I am more hands on the first, month or two. I will probably visit the practice a little bit more often, but still I'm not there every day. It's I'm not holding their hands. I'm delegating and trusting the new team there to lead it. I've also got my operations officer who will go over there. I've also got other seasoned team members who all say, hey, I want you to go to the new office today and kind of help train them with some of these systems, or this stuff, or whatever it is. So there's definitely a lot more work on the front end of getting the practice open than once it's open. Now that said, as you build your teams, it becomes less and less. So like the amount of work I put into my first startup when I literally had 0 employees and it was just me doing everything was insane. I could never do that now. Even with only working 1 day a week clinically, even if I cut out that clinical day, I could never, with my other responsibilities I have to do, I could never do that now. But I've got my executive assistant who can help me do things. I've got my operations officer who can help me do things. I've got my other office managers who can help me do things. I will hire office managers for these offices before they open so they can help us do things. So, you really have to depend on your teams to help. I'm gonna the doctors I'm gonna bring in. I'll have them help with some stuff before it opens. So like you got to get other people involved in the project. Otherwise, I mean, guys, it sounds crazy when I say it that I've got 4 practices that I've opened the last 3 years and I'm trying to open 3 more. And honestly, if things go according to plan, all 3 of them might open in December. We literally might 3 different locations. One of them is actually it's our first practice that's farther. It's 2.5 hours from Tampa, so we're starting to stretch out a little farther in Florida. 3 different practices, 3 separate locations, potentially all opening. Right before the holidays here in December. It's going to be a crazy time for sure, but fortunately, I built a great team around me. I've learned how to delegate, even like delegating to like the different reps and stuff like that. So like getting my Benko rep as involved as possible in the process, the contractor, so it's like you delegate certain things to those team members, on your external team, you delegate certain things to team members on your internal team, and there's still a decent amount of work on your plate, but it's a lot more manageable once you have all that support around you.
It was we were out to dinner, I guess it was only a few days ago really. And we're at the dinner and Manny, who is Andrew's operations officer, is there. And I guess Manny went to look one of the locations that day and met with the landlord and I looked over the lease that day for you. And he came to dinner and informed you of a couple critical things and you guys made a real quick decision.
Yep.
And you didn't have to go that day to look at the property. You didn't
Oh
have
yeah.
to talk to the landlord. You
Yep.
trusted him to convey the information to you and you guided him. And that's really efficient. That's really the way to do it. So one question I have is so let's say these three practices are opening in December. What is your life like in October and November leading up to that?
It's gonna be busy. I've got my wife's birthday. I've got a few trips planned. We've got an Invisalign party at two of our offices. I've got a 5K I'm running in for our in a tooth costume. So even outside of all that, it's a busy time for me. But I mean, yeah, assuming that they do open it's going to make things even a little bit more chaotic. Now that said, I do very little of the hiring process. Usually I'll meet with the doctors personally myself, ahead of time. I'm actually meeting with one of the potential doctors this week. But like as far as hiring assistants, hygienists, front desk, things like that, my operations officer Manny, he does the postings, he sorts through them, he finds the potential candidates, he does the initial interviews. We'll then have those team members that pass the first round interviews with Manny, we'll have them go to one of my other locations that's already open and interview with the office manager there and kind of meet some of the team members there. And then usually I'm not even involved for most of those positions. The hygienist I probably will do a final interview of, most likely. The office manager, I will, but the office manager is going to also meet with our CFO, who's my father, before they even meet with me as well. So, like, I only do the final interview for key positions. So that makes a lot. I mean, trying to hire three different teams, if you're involved in the whole thing, would be insane. There's
Yeah.
no way that I could do that.
Me and
So,
Ryan only interview the final 2 or 3 candidates. Sometimes I
yeah.
don't interview them at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so again, if I didn't have the teams around me, it would be like I could work 100 hours a week, and I still wouldn't be able to do everything I've got to do. I'm more focused on making sure, working closely with, my marketing team at Energize, making sure everything's set up with our websites, the marketing campaigns we want to roll out, things like that. Making sure our Google My Business and Yelp pages and all those things are set up.
You're focusing on the revenue generating things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, that is.
You're focusing on the things that will get you money as soon as possible.
My main focus is to make sure that the, final construction goes as it's supposed to, the equipment gets installed, everything's up and running, that we're going to have patience in the chair from day one. Like those are my main focuses. A lot of the other stuff though, I've got the rest of my team kind of working on.
You filter the noise.
So that was project one. Project two is almost identical, just a different location. And then project three is one that actually it is it would actually be the first practice ever that I'd purchase. No patients. It's a old office. The dentist was retiring. They really were just kind of doing like our implant office, just really doing implants. There's no hygiene, so there's no patient base coming with it. But they have all the equipment basically there. I've seen pictures of it at least. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. So, it's a pretty affordable practice price, under 200,000 for the build out office with all the chairs, CBCT, computers, things like that. And then we would probably go and maybe do some minor cosmetic construction to kind of upgrade a few little areas a little bit. We would have some more equipment. We've got to buy a scanner, 3D printer, some stuff like that, and we'd have to do some IT work. I'd have to make sure that the computers are going to work for what we want to do. But either way, my guess is all said and done, we could probably get that practice open for us for about 350K.
I was gonna say 400. Yeah.
That's going to include some working capital too. So,
And that would be $1 million startup.
oh yeah, yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the advantage of buying a practice that already has the equipment, is you're not paying full price for all that equipment. So like the cost to put in all the dental chairs and delivery units and compressor and vac and CBCT and computers and all that stuff would be a good bit higher. So if you find a practice that already has that stuff and it's in working order, it's going to work for you, you do save some money on that. Whereas the other two projects, it's going to be closer to 450, 500K, including the working capital, because we've got to buy all of that equipment new. And we're doing a little bit more construction on those, projects as well. Now that said, in today's day and time, and with the cost of construction, and here's the other thing, guys, to keep in mind: two of these three projects, our goal is to have them at 10 operatories. They're like 3,000 square feet, give or take, offices. To do a 3,000 square foot office with 10 operatories, as a full build out, brand new startup construction on that 12 to 18 month timeline, you're probably looking at like $1 million. Like the full cost for the build out, all the
All day
equipment, all
long.
that stuff, you're probably looking at about $1 million, or at least close to it. So we're doing it for half or a little bit less than half of that cost with a much faster timeline.
And with today's interest rates, that loan is going to be a big killer of EBITDA. Like
Yeah.
with today's
Oh, yeah,
interest
for
rates,
sure.
it's going to be stupid, right? So you're saving on the overall value, but you're saving on your monthly overhead dramatically, which you increase EBITDA to 20% even faster. So
Yep.
I have one more question for you. I want to close up with. So getting on the front lines of it, right? So we're going to be 90 days out from launching 3 practices in December, all in the same month. Sounds nuts to 90% of people that you would even do that, right?
Sounds nuts to me as you say it. Like what
Yeah,
the hell am I doing?
you're stupid. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
so
seriously.
but
I'm with you.
but the fun part is watching to see how it either explodes or works out. Usually you make it work out. So in those 90 days, there's going to be an immense amount of team members coming to you saying things like, "Oh, there's a problem. There's a problem. There's a problem." They're all going to fly at you very fast. I think part of where dentists make a mistake is the emotions and the psychology they use when that person comes to you with the problem. Do you embrace it as a problem or is it a challenge that you overcome, right? So a lot of guys get it and that all that stress builds on them and their team members see them start to crack and everyone loses faith in everything. You are the anchor of confidence for doing this, right? So all these problems come to you, I know with me, I'm kind of a big Jocko Willnick fan. We're real similar in background.
I've got his creatine and pre-workout. I just
Oh,
started
do you? Okay,
taking.
so me and Jocko, we have parallels. We're both former military guys. We're both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. I really love a lot of his stuff. When his people come to him with a problem, he's like, "Oh, awesome, exciting." I'm kind of the same way at my company, and we have a lot of problems all day long. They come like, "Ah, this is a big problem. Ah, exciting, awesome. Let's take it. Let's challenge it. Let's learn from it. Let's get out of it." So when your people come to you with all these problems in the 90 days leading up to doing 3 startups, there's going to be a lot of it. What is your mentality like when you interact with them?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Matt. And I will say I don't have people, all kinds of people coming to me all day, every day with problems because we filter that out. So there is a hierarchy. Team members are supposed to go to their direct supervisor first, and then direct supervisor is supposed to go to operations officer or CFO. So the good news is I get a lot less of those we have a problem texts and emails and things like that. The bad news is when I get them, they're usually bigger problems. So
Okay.
all of the low level stuff gets handled. Like I said, I was in Italy, someone got let go. I came back, I found out about it after the fact. So like a lot of the lower level things get handled without any input or even knowledge from me a lot of times. And that's how I want it, because again, you've got to filter the noise. If I knew about every single problem that arose, every day, like I would go insane. I would have no mental capacity left to do the things that I need to accomplish. And I'll tell you what else, guys, like has been huge for me. I was really hesitant to do this, but I am so glad I did. I recently turned off notifications from Google Maps where you'll get notifications about reviews that come in. So if you think about it, we've got these automated review systems. We've got 4 offices. Like every single day, we're getting Google reviews for the different offices, usually 5 stars, but you do get the occasional bad reviews here and there. And it used to drive me crazy. And then, first thing I'm doing, looking up this patient, what happened. I used to personally reach out and call or text the patient, try to deal with this problem. Well, all of a sudden now, like 2 hours of my life is gone where I could have been working on, this or that. I've got Manny, has this stuff turned on. The office managers get notifications when the Google reviews come in. They are, again, the first line of defense. They're dealing with it. I only get informed if it's an issue that cannot be resolved, through them, or if they have a question where they want to refund a patient something or whatever it is. But like 90% of the time, I'm not even getting involved in these issues with Google reviews or anything like that anymore. So I do think as you grow and like as you've got more on your plate, it is important to try to take some of the day-to-day noise off of it. Now, going back to the question, like, how do you deal with those problems?
What was your mentality when a big problem comes to you and
Right,
the employee is visibly stressed by it?
right,
Like how
right.
do you confront that and instill confidence and be a good leader? Like in that moment, what happens?
Well, I think the bigger that your organization, your business grows, you get the privilege to handle bigger problems. And so like that's the thing, like I said, like honestly, I probably handle less problems these days, but the problems that I face are typically much more challenging, much bigger issues. I honestly, like, my mentality is it's the cost of growth. I mean, like, try to approach it without emotion, try to approach it just with, like, okay, like, this is the situation, how are we going to deal with it? Like, let's come up with a logical solution, that type of a thing. Problems are never as even bigger problems are never as big as they seem. And the other thing that I'm a big proponent of is, like, grittiness, resourcefulness. I mean, grit is one of our core values for our organization. My mentality is there is always a solution, even when your back's against the wall, even when it seems like there's nothing you can do. Like, think outside the box, get resourceful, like, figure out a way to accomplish what you set out to do. I guarantee you can find some way to get it done. So, like, that's how we approach some of these bigger problems. But
Yeah, I mean, grit is it, right? Like, get in the fight. Like, just
yeah,
be involved. Like, it really is. This is the deal. Nothing worth doing is easy. Everything sucks. Business is freaking hard. Okay, you talk about the size of problems. I'm dealing with like a $200,000 size problem right now, where it could be a zero for me here soon, right? And it's like when you're at that level, they're the problems you encounter. Some of those problems are not going to go in your favor, and then then that emotion carries, and you get gun shy and you make stupid decisions. You have to understand, it's like playing blackjack. As you make those bets, there's going to be some losses. The key is, are you skewing the system and making sure that it's efficient, so when your wins come, your wins are way bigger than your losses, right?
yeah, guys, I'm sorry if I ever make it seem like this stuff is easy, because it's not. It's not easy for me. Just because we've had the success that we've had and we've been able to grow the way that we've been growing, it's it's not easy to be a dentist and a dental practice owner and a CEO, and all that. Like, it is not an easy thing to do, even when you have great people on your teams, even when do great marketing and bring in a lot of new patients and grow year over year. Like, there are always going to be stresses, there are always going to be problems. And I
It's
mean, at the end of the day, it's your mindset, it's your perspective, it's how you face those problems, it's how you rebound from shit that happens to you. But it's never easy, but it's always worth it. I mean, that's what I always tell dentists that are thinking about doing a startup. It's a wild ride. It's never going to be easy. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, but it's, in the end of the day, it is always worth it. So
and really, like, so for me, right? Like, my background, I have one leg, I'm an amputee, double fractured back, two brain injuries, my body's crushed from military service, and everything's hard. Like, going to the bathroom in the morning is hard. Getting up to do things is hard, right? There's a point where, like, trying to build your practices, these things can really wear on you. If you allow it. That's if you make the mindset that, like, oh, this sucks, right? Part of the shift has to be, you have to find the enjoyment in the suck. You have to be like, this is what it's about. Like, it's not about, fat bank accounts and Italian sports cars. It's about, what was the fight to build it, right? So I just did an amputee retreat called Unbroken Spirit. It was really awesome for me. And there was a 6 weeks program leading up to it to change your mindset about being an amputee. Then we were there for a week and we had trauma counselors, and really a lot changed. So I used to have a mindset of, man, I'm gonna go do this with my wife or my family, go to Myrtle Beach, walk around, whatever it is. I would say that's gonna suck with one leg, right? Now I say, if I can do this with one leg, that's pretty badass. So for me, in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey, I spent 7 years perfecting my craft. I have lost half my moves. That's a lot of time of loss. I was going into training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like, I can't do these certain things anymore. It sucks, and I didn't want to do it. I changed my mindset to, if I can beat this 28-year-old purple belt into submission with one leg, that's pretty badass. So part of it is, I think the docs, and it's starting to apply my stuff to it,
no, that's great, Matt.
but like, part of it is, like, when you're in the suck of it, right? I'll get excited. This is it. This is the fight. This is where it's made. When you're in the suck of it, that is when your equity is built. That is when the money is made, and that's it. The easy times is not when the equity is built. Is not when the money is made. So understand, when the stress comes and shit sucks and you're questioning things, there's this equity bank account just piling stuff up, because that is when it's made.
Yeah, man, it's like some of our favorite mantras, embrace the suck, into the storm, things like that. If you want an incredible life, you've got to do incredible things. You've
Like,
got to take
impossible things.
you've got to take incredible risks. You've got to deal with stressful situations. But I do think it makes the victory that much, sweeter at that point is when you overcome some of these challenges to make things happen. I mean, dude, going back to the two newest startups that we had done just earlier this year, I mean, you remember all those construction delays we
Oh, it
faced,
sucked, man.
having to replace almost the entire team for both offices, delaying training and opening like 10 different times, my battles with the contractor, the issues with the electric meter and all that stuff. But you better believe when we finally got those offices open, like it felt great. And then when we had the success that we've had, I mean, it makes it feel that much, more worth it having gone through all that. That said, if I can go back and not have done a 18-month build out, I would have preferred to have done a quick startup. But that's okay. I did want to mention, guys, like one thought, for some of you guys listening out there, if you've never done a startup before and you're looking at your first startup, there is some advantage to doing the traditional 12 to 18 month full build out startup road because you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah, you made it
there is
for
a
it.
lot that you've got to do in that short period. It's like that's the thing too, man. Is like when I do these more traditional startups, I've got a long time to make all these different things happen. Whereas when you do a quick start, I mean, just like think about things like insurance credentialing. I mean, typically with our PPO
Big
profits that
bottleneck.
we use and the fee negotiation and credentialing, I mean, it often takes 6 months plus. So, we are basically starting the process now, even before we have things like definitive, because we want to get, it credentialed in a network as quickly as possible. But like, it is very likely when we first open our doors, we're not going to be a network with plans that we want to be a network with because of, how quick the timeline moves. So as much as I do appreciate the quick start and, moving up our timeline, and like, think about it this way, guys. Like, it's a whole extra year of revenue, and it sets you a year ahead on practice growth. So, I mean, like, there are huge benefits to doing the quick startup, and it saves you money on the build out. And like, again, 100% worth it. But you've got to know what you're doing first. So, I would not recommend that for your first startup, but I would recommend it for your
Well,
second. Once you kind of know what you're doing, and just make sure when you do a quick start that you think about the 10 million things you got to do and that you're working on them as early as possible because those 3 or 4 months are going to fly by before you're ready to open your doors. So,
talk about the first two startups Andrew did and the delays and the problems. I was on the front lines for it. I talked to you every day, and you were like, "Just this, it sucked." Right? That was, I think if we had to talk about your CEO journey, that was probably your biggest suck time, right? Would you say so far? That was your deepest hole you had been in so far. Was that right?
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, you're probably
It was
right.
probably like the hardest time you've had in the trenches, right? So this episode's coming out after Dental Intelligence is in Telecon. So Andrew at Intellicon is getting an award. I'm not sure exactly the title of it, but it's either like fastest growth startups in history or fastest growth startups in 2023. But they benchmarked his two startups against 11,000 practices, and both of them beat startup metrics for all 11,000 practices on DI as being the most successful startups in that time period, something like that. And the suck that he did during that time period, he did something remarkable that came right back out of it. And the biggest analytics company in our entire industry recognized what had happened and how remarkable it is. To have two practices start up at the same time, and both the very first month do mature practice numbers is really remarkable. And both of them didn't just do mature practice numbers; they did like really good mature practice numbers, like numbers guys strive to get to in 5 years. You did month one, right? So that suck yielded that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Matt. So I do want to kind of get this episode wrapped up. We're kind of getting to the end of the time we like to do here. So I did want to just really quickly kind of recap. So if you've already done a startup and you're looking for a second or third location, I do recommend trying to look for some of these quick start options. Again, best places to look. One, if you don't already, form a great relationship with your local commercial real estate broker, ideally like a healthcare real estate like Car. If you guys form a good relationship and they call you whenever these opportunities come up, that's usually one of the best ways to find them. The other place, you can look on places like we've got like Doctor's Choice is a practice broker in our area, but like find your local state practice brokers and look for practices that say like turnkey startups, or things like that. Usually, depending on the size and, what equipment's coming with it and things like that, they should be pretty affordable. 100 grand, 150 grand, 200 grand, probably no more than 250 for a bigger, nicer, newer equipped practice. Because you're not buying any patients. All you're buying is that build out ready space with the equipment there. And that can definitely save you money. Whenever you go to do it, make sure that you bring experts with you, especially if you want to change things. Again, a lot of times a practice might be built out for 5 or 6 ops, and you think, hey, I think I could get 7 or 8 in there. So like the actual process I go through in these cases, if there's not a like accurate floor plan drawn up that they can provide you, there's companies that we use. It's called Floor Plan Ninja, is a local company for us, but like basically they go in with special cameras and they design a current floor plan of the space for you. Then you can send that floor plan. I use John Malone as my floor plan guy. He works with Ideal Practices, but he also freelances. So I'll send him my floor plan. He has done every single floor plan for me so far. He's amazing.
He's done a lot of startups.
He'll look at, yeah, he's like the Picasso of floor plans.
100%.
He will look at the current floor plan. We'll jump on a call, talk about what I want to do, and then he'll start working on, kind of redesigning things. Because again, my goal is always, how many ops can I get in this space? Because the only place that generates revenue in your practice is the operatory. And I've never heard a dentist say, I wish I didn't build so many ops. It's always the opposite. My flagship office, first startup I ever did, has 7 ops. I wish I had 8. I wish I had 9. I wish I had 12. But you always wish you had more. So whenever you're doing a startup, my biggest piece of advice, try to get as many ops into that space as possible. If you're doing a quick start, try to look to see if you can redesign to get some more ops out of it. That's about it, guys. We'll kind of keep you updated over the next few months here on these newest startup projects. I hope you got something out of this episode. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please take 2 minutes, just like you ask your patients. Go on there, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. If you think our podcast has helpful information, please share it with other dentists that you know that might benefit from it. If you're not already, please subscribe and follow so that you get notifications every week. We release episodes every Wednesday. We really do appreciate you guys listen. We do this for you. I mean, that's why Matt and I do the podcast. So we really appreciate you guys listening. As always, you can feel free to reach out to me. Best way, send me an email at docvallodds.com. And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again next week.
Guys, thank you for joining us. Like I said, please subscribe, please review, please share. Have a great day, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode.